I'm sorry, let me go back into the version of the meeting agenda that I can see and pull up the opening remarks. All right, welcome to the May 19th, 2026 meeting of the Planning Board. First, we'll take a roll call to introduce board members and staff. Maureen Collins-White.
Here.
Mike Derderian.
Here.
Tim Haladina.
Here.
Phil Giordano.
I'm here on a train, so I'm going to keep my camera off.
That's fine. I'm Ellen Rawlings. I'm also here. We are also joined by Amanda Wolf, our Housing and Land Use Planner, Nora Loughnane, our Director of Community and Economic Development, and Charlotte Lynch from Westwood Media Center. This meeting is recorded by Westwood Media Center and broadcast live on local cable television Comcast Channel 6 and Verizon Channel 42. Meetings are also live on the Westwood Media Center's YouTube channel. If you're interested in joining the meeting via Zoom, you can find the login directions in the Planning Board meeting notice that is posted to the calendar section of the town's webpage at https://www.townhall.westwood.ma.us. We will begin the meeting with only the board members and staff unmuted and on video. As the chair recognizes individuals to speak, we will unmute them. Board members may choose to mute themselves when they are not speaking in order to minimize background noise. For applications, the chair will first invite the applicant to address the board and give a presentation summarizing what is being requested. Board members receive the application materials prior to the meeting and will have reviewed them. Board members may ask questions during and following the presentation. Staff and outside experts will provide comments to the board. If the issue includes a public hearing, the board will then proceed to the public comment portion of the public hearing and will restate the instructions. In this remote meeting format, residents and guests may participate in several ways. Attendees should raise their hand and wait to be unmuted and recognized to speak over the Zoom meeting application or from a telephone dial-up. We will be able to hear you but not see you. Additionally, comments may be submitted by email or regular mail prior to the meeting. When we come to that part of the meeting, I will remind everyone of the process. Following the public comment portion, the board will deliberate and make a decision or continue the hearing to a specific future date. All remote meetings require that votes be taken by roll call. When a motion and second has been made, the chair will ask if there is any further discussion before proceeding to a roll call vote and will then restate the results of the vote. Okay, Nora, Amanda, do we have any changes to our agenda this evening?
No changes.
All right, with that, then we will go to our first agenda item, which is reorganization of the board, annual reorganization of the planning board, election of chair, vice chair, and secretary. I believe at this point I turn the meeting over to you all, Nora.
Yes. So the first item on the agenda is the reorganization of the board, and we'll start with the appointments for the officers of the board. You have to, at this meeting, appoint or nominate someone to be the chair, another to be the vice chair, and another to be the secretary. So
I nominate Ellen to be the chair.
Second.
Third. All right. Any additional nominations? We'll come back. Moving on to the vice chair.
I nominate Phil.
Second.
Are there any additional nominations?
I nominate Tim to be the secretary. Don't worry, Tim, it's not a big lift.
Are there any additional nominations? If not, then we'll go back and take them one at a time by motion. So we would need a motion to appoint, to elect Ellen Loughnane Rawlings as the planning board chair for the 2026-2027 year. Do I have a motion?
I move to nominate Ellen to be the Ellen Larkin Rawlings as the chair of the planning board.
Second.
I think it's probably easiest if I share my screen. Just give me 1 second. That large enough for everyone to see?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we said Ellen, so we need a roll call vote on that. Ellen?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Maureen,
Aye.
and Timothy.
Aye.
Okay, so that is unanimous. We had a nomination for Phil as the vice chair. Can someone make that a motion?
Can I? I can move since I'm technically
You
in
can now,
state
yes.
right now. I move that the planning board elect Philip Giordano to serve as planning board vice chair for the 2026-2027 year.
Second.
Second.
All right, and a roll call vote. Ellen,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Maureen,
Aye.
and Tim.
Aye.
All right, and then the last one, we had a nomination of Tim Haladina to serve as secretary for the 2026-2027 calendar year, or not calendar year, planning board year. Would someone like to make a motion to that effect?
Mhm. I
I
move
move
that,
that, go ahead, you do it, Maureen.
okay. I move that the planning board elect Timothy S. Haldania to serve as planning board secretary for the 2026-2027 year.
Second.
Roll call vote. Ellen,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Maureen,
Aye.
and Tim.
Aye.
All set. Those are your officers, and Ellen, you can take over the meeting again.
I wasn't kidding, I guess, when I said it's our annual game of not it. I'm not sure whether to
Thank
thank
you.
everybody or not, but thank you. And in the interim, we've also been joined by Jess Cole, our recording secretary. Hey, Jess. Okay. Thank you all for hopefully we have another productive and wonderful year. With that, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is the introduction of our new Westwood Media Center Executive Director, Sean Corcoran. Just for a brief background, I had attended the last select board meeting and had the pleasure of meeting Sean in person. He had also reached out before that, and I think he's trying to visit every board, just introduce himself and take any questions we may have at this time. But this way we can put a face with the name and because we'll be, I'm sure, collaborating with Sean over the next year. So if Sean is here, if we want to bring him in.
Hello.
Hey, Sean, welcome.
Thank you so much, Ellen. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for letting me come by and introduce myself. That's right. I am visiting the different boards so people can get to know me a little bit and also to ask for people's input and people's help as Westwood Media Center is facing some challenges. But as you know, we're a nonprofit in town. We're dedicated to covering town government, the schools, and the culture in the community. We do it in just a whole variety of ways. I've just been really amazed by how much Westwood Media Center does and how much of a part of the community it is, the fabric of the community. It's really a local institution, and so it's really an honor to have this position. My background, I come from journalism, local journalism, for the most part. Most recently, I was the news director, executive news director for a station in northern Colorado, though I worked remotely from my home in Needham. Before that, I was working as the senior managing editor at WGBH in Boston in the newsroom there, which is a joint newsroom. I am a radio guy, but it's also a TV newsroom. So I have some background there as well. And then I was on the Cape for many years, but I started off as a local newspaper reporter, Bedford, Reading, covering all sorts of meetings just like this one. I have tremendous respect for local government and the volunteers who drive it. So thank you. It's wonderful to be here in Westwood, my neighboring town, and a lot of respect for the people who started and maintained and has fostered Westwood Media Center over the years, and most recently Melinda Garfield as the executive director, and Charlotte, who's running this meeting down in the jail cell, as we call it, of Town Hall, and Evan Cardamino, who you also see out and about. So we do all sorts of stuff. We're a third space in town. We have classes, we do workshops. If you come in and you say, I want to do a show, would help you develop a show. We're really not limited. It's all about public service. We cover concerts, ceremonies of all kinds. We're covering the parade on Monday, and we've reached out to the middle school and said, hey, any of the kids want to serve as commentators as the parade comes by, like the Macy's Day Parade. Give them the opportunity. Well, so we'll have a kid doing that, a student doing that. We'll have a student working the camera, and we'll be there to help them. We also do, as you know, sports. We do about 25 local home games per season. We do more with more volunteers, and that's one of my charges as well, to find more volunteers. And then we do the basics. Under contract, we're required to cover certain meetings in town. This is one of them: Board of Selectmen, the Warrant Commission, Finance, School Committee, Town Meeting, and elections. Those are what we're required to do. Everything else, it's just about what needs to be done. We also, as our funding crisis has become more severe, we have started to do private productions as well. So if anyone needs private production done, we're there for you, and we can talk about that. And we loan out equipment. We're here for Westwood. We have 3 24-hour cable channels. We're broadcasting on one of those right now. I'm going to quickly move on, and because I know you guys want to get to the rest of your meeting, but I am going to want to, and if anyone would like to speak with me, anyone who has ideas about Westwood Media Center and our future, I really invite that, because I mentioned our funding crisis. That's because we're funded not by tax dollars. We're not part of the town. We're a nonprofit. We're funded by cable subscriptions. And we all know what's happening with the cable subscriptions. There's a 5% fee on cable subscriptions. And as those get cut, Westwood Media Center is losing money, and so we're less able to do the things in the community that we want to be able to do to serve the community. So that's one of my charges. I need to create a strategic plan to guide us for the next 3 to 5 years. How are we going to replace that money? How are we going to continue to be of service? And I'm talking to other organizations that do the same thing around us. How are they doing? And everyone's doing something different. They're raising money in different ways. Some of them are joining together, banding together. Some of them are becoming part of the community, joining the school department or joining the town itself as a branch of the town. I don't know what we're going to do, but now is the time for me to gather ideas and solicit input. And so that's why I'm coming to all the boards to introduce myself and say, I'll take any and all ideas. And we're also looking for volunteers. We're looking for benefactors. We're looking for just people to help us to continue to foster Westwood Media Center, to keep us strong for the future, and have something here that Westwood can always be proud of and will continue to grow. So, but I'm happy to answer questions. Again, I really appreciate you taking the time to have me on your agenda, particularly on the night that you reorganize and it's kind of your first meeting as this board. So thank you for that.
Sorry, I was muted. Of course. Thank you for taking the time to come introduce yourself to us and meet the board a little bit. Do any board members have any questions or comments for Sean at this time? I do have his contact info. I can send it to Nora/Amanda and have it sent around to everybody so that if folks want to reach out after this meeting, they will have the means to do so. But if anyone has any questions or comments at this time.
Don, I will reach out to you. I'd love to have a talk with you. So,
Oh,
but
thank you.
right now I'm working off a phone, so I'm not going to do it now.
I appreciate that, Phil. Thank you. And also anyone at home too, please reach out to me if you're watching this on cable.
Any other board member questions or comments at this time? All right. Well, on behalf of the planning board and all of us here, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to you. I'm very excited to have you here working in our town. And I mean, we are, I'll speak for the board on this. We rely heavily on Westwood Media Center because our meetings are still remote. And even if we do go hybrid at some point, of course, Westwood Media is an integral part of that. And we do the in-sessions after. So I'm personally very grateful for the services Westwood Media Center provides. And in situations like this, it allows our residents to participate even if they can't physically be in a room all together. So I think that's invaluable. So very happy to have you on board, excited to work with you. Thank you very much for coming to spend some time with us this evening.
Thank you, Ellen. I really appreciate the support.
Of
Thank you
course.
very much.
All right.
Goodbye. Good luck with your work tonight, guys.
Good night. Thank you very much. All right, sorry, I was just going back to the agenda here. All right, so that was Sean, and I'll get his contact information to Amanda and Nora, and then they can share it with the rest of the board. So our next agenda item is, I'm sorry, my computer's giving me a hard time, 169 University Avenue. I don't actually have the little blurb. It is about changes to signage, Nora, is that?
Yes, so this is a proposal from Wegmans to change their existing sign, which reads wine and beer, to a new sign that reads wine, liquor, and beer in light of their new liquor license that allows them to sell all alcohol.
Thank you. Do we have anyone from the application team here? Yes, it
We
looks like
do?
we do. All right, looks like Caitlin.
Yes.
Caitlin,
Hi,
well, hi.
I was joining in while Nora was saying my little blurb. So I'm Caitlin Piekowski. I work in the site development group at Wegmans. And Nora pretty much covered it, and we have been talking back and forth. So yeah, we would like to change our current sign that just says wine and beer to wine, liquor, and beer. And it's similar to what we've done across the company. So it's a standard sign for us. And it would be no different as it is today, with the white during the daytime and then red LED at night. And yeah, I have this here. And the proposed photo that I have is from the Medford, Massachusetts store. So it is something that we do have roughly locally if you need to check it out. But this is what we have proposed.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Is that kind of the
That's about it. Yeah. So if you have any questions, let me know.
perfect? Thank you. No, it did seem very straightforward. Any staff comments?
Just to help you understand, the photo on the left is the actual conditions in Westwood. The photo on the right is assigned at another location, but it would be the same appearance. Just put that on the stonework on the photo on the left.
Yes.
So there's the addition of the word liquor, and the letters are all being replaced. So the original sign will be replaced with larger letters. In all, it's an increase of about 100% in the size of the overall sign, but still well within the allowance for signs on that property.
Thank you. All right, I'll open up to board member questions, comments.
None.
Okay, yeah, I didn't really have any. I know there was a couple of waivers requested, but they all seemed completely reasonable to me. Things like a traffic study
Correct.
and stormwater drainage or something like that, that I agree are probably really not necessary in this circumstance. This is not a public hearing, it's just an agenda item, right, Nora?
That's correct. It's a
Okay,
project development review item. So it doesn't require a public hearing, but it does require a motion and a vote.
right, okay.
Ellen,
there
sorry, one question, for the staff. I know we have a design consultant who looks at, at times when there's applications on University Ave, they look at design elements. Does the staff have any comment on the size of the lettering? Do we think that's going to fit nicely in with the surrounding area? That was the only note that I had, was obviously the signage is increasing in height, and so I was just curious if the staff had any particular thoughts, and if not, then that's great too.
So I would say that the size of the letters are consistent with the signs of elsewhere on the property. I can show you the plan as well. And that, when I just get this up, sorry, this will show you the sign in comparison to other signs on the building. So the one at the top is the existing sign in comparison to, say, the pharmacy sign, the large Wegmans sign, and the Wegmans Cafe sign. And you can see that the wine and beer sign was significantly smaller. Whereas here's the new sign, the wine, beer, and liquor. That's probably a little hard to see. Make it a little larger for you. And it's similar in size, but still smaller than the pharmacy sign. So I do think that the sign letter size is appropriate for the large expansive wall.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Nora. Any other questions or comments from anybody?
No, looks straightforward.
And I agree. Nothing from me.
Yeah, agreed. I didn't really have any questions. I appreciate Mike's question about the scale. Any further discussion on this topic? If not, I think we could start with motions.
All right, is that large enough to read?
Now it's there. It was just still saying Nora is sharing her screen. I think it's large enough, but I guess I'm not the one reading it. So
I can take this one. I move that the planning board grant project development review PDR approval for the proposed 47 square foot, quote, wine, liquor, and beer, end quote, wall sign at Wegmans, 169 University Avenue, as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on May 5, 2026, with the following conditions. 1. Except as modified by the conditions and findings hereof, the project shall comply with the project plans and with the conditions of all prior decisions for the property in all respects, and the applicant shall pursue completion of the project with reasonable diligence and continuity. 2. If the project or any condition imposed in this decision requires any other permit, license, or other approval from any town of Westwood board, commissioner, agency, or other Commonwealth or federal regulatory agency, the applicant shall make an appropriate application for the same and shall obtain all required approvals prior to the start of any work. If any condition of such permit, license, or other approval from any other board, committee, or agency is inconsistent with this decision, the applicant shall make application to the planning board for an amendment of this decision, and the planning board shall consider such application in accordance with the requirements of MGL Chapter 48, Section 9, and all applicable planning board rules and regulations. 3. Any proposed alterations, modifications, deletions, or changes to the decision shall be requested in writing to the town planner and building commissioner prior to implementation. A. Proposed alterations which are considered de minimis by the building commissioner may be accepted as a note to the file. B. Proposed alterations which are considered minor by the building commissioner shall require the filing of a modification application of said approval for review by the planning board at a publicly posted planning board meeting. C. Proposed alterations which are determined to be major by the building commissioner or by the planning board shall be considered by the planning board as a formal amendment to the approval and will require a new public hearing before the planning board. 4. All project-related construction activities shall comply with the time frames set forth in the town's general bylaws, Chapter 292 for noise and construction, which allows such work Monday through Saturday between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and Sunday between the hours of 12 p.m. and 7 p.m. 5. A copy of this decision and the project plan shall be kept on the project site at all times during construction. 6. The decision shall lapse if a substantial use thereof or construction thereunder has not begun, except for good cause, within 2 years following the grant thereof. The planning board may extend such approval for good cause upon the written request of the applicant.
Second.
sorry, I was muted again. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Mike,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The motion carries.
Right, so this is not a hearing, so you don't need to close it out, but before you move on to your next chapter, I was just confirming in the bylaw. I think, Caitlin, you mentioned that the lighting would be red. I believe that the bylaw only allows steady white light, and I believe that's what's at the site right now for the wine and beer
Oh, I'm
site.
sorry. I thought it was red. So whatever is existing is
Yes.
what we're going to use.
Okay.
In most of our sites, it's red, so that's a standard for us. So it will be white then, if that's what it is.
All right. Well, you're all
Thank you
set.
for your
Thank
time.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
And Nora, there's no other action we need to take, right? We're
No,
all good?
and the plans are consistent with the bylaw. I just wanted to
Okay.
make sure to clarify that, so there's no misunderstanding.
Perfect. No, thank you for that. All right, then our next agenda item is 22 Everett Street, continuation of public hearing for consideration of amendment to mixed-use multifamily residential overlay district, MUMFROD, special permit for the block at 22 Everett, 22 and 40 Everett Street to relocate and downsize the playground, adjust landscaping, and increase number of off-street parking spaces continued from April 7th, 2026. folks. I see Peter Zaka.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am here solo tonight. Mr. Fusiolo apologizes. He is, I thought he was coming back today, but apparently he's coming back tomorrow. And it's not a vacation. He's on a work trip. So, thank you for the record, Peter Zaka. I'm representing, where am I? PP Everett LLC. The board had asked at the last meeting that we come back with a more I'll use the word accessible playground design. We've accomplished that. I have submitted to plans and oversight, but the easiest thing to do to understand how this is accessible is Nora, can you bring those up?
I can, just a second.
Thank you. And it's more the one that's not the fancy colored pictures, those are nice, but I guess the rendering and not the rendering.
The plan itself, you want to see?
Yes, because
Right.
I can explain it from that. I've
Okay.
spent a lot of time with the playground folks. As you may be aware, we are ourselves are not designing this. We have been working with our MRC Recreation, who've been around for quite a while. So what you have here is, so this is, I think, totally different than we showed you last time. So in the upper triangular area, that's more the preschool in-ground, the preschool part of the playground. Other than the slide, most of the activities on that are used from the ground. You go around that. But more to the point is on the bigger structure that you see that has ramps. So one of the complaints of what we had given before is that a child who may be wheelchair bound would have to be physically lifted or removed from the wheelchair to participate. So at the lower part of this page, you can see where it says grade. So that is a ramp that goes up I think it has a height of 1 feet, and that's a covered area. There are various activities, if you will, under that covered area, but then it turns and it ramps up again another foot, where you see it goes to the 2 feet, and then at the very end of that, which they can enter without having to be lifted or removed from the wheelchair, is what's called the Rock With Me, and that is a piece of equipment that is actually could be, I'll use the word shared by those who are in wheelchairs and those who are not, and they share that together. So that is actually, and this was a specific request to the playground designer, was we wanted a piece of equipment that could be enjoyed by a child in a wheelchair without having to be physically lifted or removed from the wheelchair. And this is the design. I will tell you, after you leave that 2-foot area, it goes up higher, and that is not per se accessible. The ground in the pitches, the fancy pitches that they send along, clearly the ground will have to be of a material that makes, that is, can accommodate accessibility requirements. So that is what we're presenting. I don't know if you want to see the fancy pitches, you may have seen them. Apparently blue is a very popular playground color because every time it sends me a picture, it's in blue. But I think this is a great, I think your points at the last meeting were well taken. And I think this is a major improvement over what we had shown last time. So the thing you see in the middle with the cover, and then you can see, and this time sort of at the top of the picture, sort of is the ramp, the first ramp that goes up, which is, wheelchair accessible. It meets all the requirements for that. Then again, there's an area underneath that. And then at the very end there, well, I don't know, in this picture, it looks like a child's actually lying in the Rock With Me, but that is directly accessible from the ramp without having to depart from a wheelchair. So.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I always hate to cut people off.
No, I'm sorry, I'm done. Thank you.
No, no worries. I was wondering about all the blue. Is that just kind of a stock color that they send, or?
Yeah, it just seems that every time we get a picture, it's, this has a little more green in it than the last ones we were getting. So I can check on the color. I do assume that those are the colors, that this would be it.
I was just curious. I don't have anything against blue, but I just thought it was interesting. It was a whole lot of blue. Thank you for the presentation. All right, why don't we start with staff comments?
So the original plan had a structure that allowed wheelchairs to access the structure, and it was a type of swing. And there's one of those at the School Street playground. And the original plan was to find one of those and put it at this location, but that has been discontinued, is no longer available. So that they looked at several other options, and this seemed to be the best option. It's very similar to the original playground. When the playground was on the other side, it was a little larger. So the structure itself was a little larger than this one, but it has all the same components. And I think this really is a truly universal design playground. And there's nothing like it around here. So I think it would be a great benefit to Westwood.
Thank you. Any other staff comments? Okay, I'll open up the floor to board member questions and comments. I see Mike.
Hi. I just have a few questions. My first question is, I know with the aerial shot, it condenses sort of like how large the actual playground is. Can you give us an idea of the size of this playground as compared to something we can compare it to? I think we talked about the School Street playground last time. Obviously, looking at this aerial photo, everything's squeezed in, and it looks it looks like it's 2 feet, 2 by 2 feet. But I know it's much larger. Is there a way we can have?
I mean,
Yeah.
again, I'm not as Giorgio's actually more familiar with your other playgrounds than I am, but it's, what makes this is, to be honest with you, is the shape, because we have one side of this that's over 80 feet long, and I think the other, and the other opposite side is 70. So this is a big, I mean, just from a, it's not a small playground. It's a good sized playground. Clearly compared to what we had, there's no doubt that this is smaller. I don't know. I'd have to leave it. I don't. I mean, I could figure out the square footage of this whole area, which we had, I think, at the last meeting, and go from there. But I apologize. I just can't compare it to.
Yeah, obviously, looking at that design, it looks much bigger than the single aerial photo, right? So
Right.
it's just how we're viewing it. Nor, do you have a sense compared to like school? Is it? I have no idea how to imagine the scope of this.
So I'm trying to remember, I think Giorgio did tell you the square footage of the playground
Yeah.
the last time he was here, and I actually don't remember what it is, but if you look at the dimensions there,
Yeah.
70, almost 75 feet long this way, 81 feet long this way, and then if we take these two, it would be about 36 feet long, I believe, if you made it a triangle. So if you were to compare it to larger than an average home footprint
Yeah.
is the
Okay.
way I would describe it. In comparison to, let me see if I can find any sizes to compare it to.
I think it was bigger than the School Street one.
Well, bigger than the toddler area in the School Street, not
Mhm.
bigger than the overall School Street. The overall School Street playground is quite a large lot.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can find something else that I can compare it to.
Is that an overhead view of it?
This is School Street, so 3,000 square feet is, it's not exact, but compared to the main area of that one.
It's about the size of the toddler area in the playground up there. If you can move to the top right, Amanda, and turn that sideways, that's about equivalent. That's about 3,000 feet over there.
It doesn't let me rotate, but
Okay, so that's about the size. I'm trying to get an aerial of, let me just see the tot lot and see if that helps.
Hmm.
Yeah, I haven't been at the
Happen to
tot lot
measure
in
that.
2 years now, but
The one
I
up
would
on-
I would say the toddler area in the School Street playground is probably about 1/6 of the size. I could be wrong.
That's teeny.
mouse is touchy today. So it's slightly larger. That's 4,800 square feet.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember. I know the original playground was supposed to be about 5,000 square
5,000.
feet, and there was a
5,000,
downsize. I
correct.
want to say to about
30. Yeah, that's what I thought too, was about 3,000.
Yeah. So it feels like it's hard to tell from the photo, and I was trying to find a way to calculate the square footage of an irregular shape like that, and I was striking out. But the maximum possible area thing that came up was about 2,700 square feet, which I think is in the ballpark of what we talked about. It seems like it's quite big. Not as big as the 5,000 square foot, but still significant. And I mean, Nora, aside from the toddler area at School Street Playground, or how big is our average, like a elementary school playground?
Well, let me go to
Like say
the.
at Pine Hill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the Pine Hill is an exceptionally large playground, so I wouldn't use that. That is probably at least as big
It
as the School Street playground. More typical playground, we'll look at the one from Deerfield, and let me see if we can scale that one off.
I love seeing all the solar panels on that roof. Just saying.
You want to see Deerfield?
Yes.
What's Deerfield's address again?
72 Deerfield. So now this has a sandbox that's 5,600 square feet.
Mm.
And that includes the table area. If we're just looking at just the playground itself and not the associated areas, it's a little smaller than that. So if I'm just looking at the playground at Deerfield, that scales to 2,500 square feet.
Okay. So what we're looking at is probably comparable to that, and I think it might even be a little bit larger.
Yes, it is a little bit larger than that. And that's a typical school size playground. So if we were to look at that, Martha Jones, the
Got it,
Downey
yep.
playground, they're all slightly different shapes, so they're a little hard to compare, but most of them have that single piece of equipment and then a smaller piece of equipment. And none of them have this universal design equipment.
Sounds good. Sounds good. My second question, I think I brought up the last time, but I'm curious. So it is private property, correct? Is the park going to be open to the public? I understand, obviously, 2022 Everett, they want people to want to use this to come. So my questions are, how is that going to work? It's private property. Is it going to be open to the public? Can it be advertised as such to, persons with disabilities to come use? Could the applicant comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, the intent was that this was going to be a benefit not only for the people at 22 Everett, but also for the general public. I'm not sure, I mean, anybody can come, but I think it would be more so those with, especially wheelchair-bound children. Yeah, again, I don't mean to say this, but, we all either have family or friends. I mean, knows somebody in that situation, and it's awful when a child cannot participate with others. So it is clearly would be. I'm not sure about advertising it. I think it hopefully will become known, but we're not. I mean, the town. I mean, I'm sure.
Yeah,
get out.
Yeah.
I really meant by advertising it, but
I'm sure there are groups and agencies, et cetera, in Westwood who the word would travel fast in this community for
yeah,
people.
but the intent has always been that, this was supposed to be welcoming and it's supposed to be an amenity for the town, and we're
Excellent.
keeping with that.
Perhaps it's
No-
as
no
simple
one's
as
being-
maybe on the signage saying open to public or something like that.
That's exactly what I was just about to say. It's a signage at the playground itself, which specifically says that it's open to non-residents or others outside in the town of Westwood.
Yeah, we can approach this. I like open to all myself, but we can,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, that's not a.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you. The one question or the one point that I was going to bring up was about that as well, that I know the intent was for it to be kind of for, well, anyone who wanted to use it. So I like the idea of putting a sign up that makes it clear that it's not purely for the development. Like I don't think I could go use the gym at the development. So I think people might not realize that the playground is for everybody.
Open to all.
So yeah, I like open to all, or something that makes it clear that it's not just for the people who live there.
And I think the sign also helps because let the people who live there know, hey,
Right.
what's this, what's this non-resident doing here? I think, yeah,
Right.
good idea.
Excellent.
Nicely
Good point,
done.
Mike.
Yeah. Well done. Any other board member comments or questions on this? I see a couple of faces that look like they're pondering. Okay.
Is that one of them?
Yes.
As an aside, have you people lost power yet? I mean,
Not
yeah.
yet.
Don't jinx
Oh, okay.
it.
I think the storm passed.
Yes, I'm
Yeah,
hoping.
no, it
Wait
has
till
now,
we
but it
vote.
was.
Wait till we vote, then you can have that comment.
Yes, I don't want to have to go out and fire up my generator, because without Wi-Fi, I'm not here. So any other board member questions or comments on this application?
I don't think so.
I'm not seeing any hands raised. I would just like to thank you, Mr. Zaka, and the applicant, that you really came back with something that shows thought, and that you heard what we had to say, and you clearly put a lot of time and thought into this. And I do think this will be a really important amenity for our community and the surrounding communities, and anyone who has the need for truly accessible equipment. There is nothing like this around here, to the best of my knowledge. So I feel like you've done a really good job of recreating what we were expecting to see, even without the Flutie Foundation and the other entities that were going to be involved. So I personally wanted to say thank you. I appreciate the effort and the time and the design you put into that.
I will let Mr. Petrucciello know that, and I mean, it takes two. The board reminded us what we were supposed to do, and Giorgio usually does the right thing, and it just again, I think he tried with the last plan, and I think lost sight. I think he was more thinking playground versus the key part of it, which was the accessibility. But I'll pass that on to him. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Yes,
you.
I'd like to echo that. I just want to say that this made a big difference, and I'm really appreciative that Giorgio did respond to some of the comments that the board had made. Thanks.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
I'll open it up to public comment now, and then if there's any other kind of last board member comments, we can come back to that. But as this is a public hearing, I will open this up to public comment. If there's anyone here who would like to offer comment or ask a question about this application, please raise your hand. We can either enable you to speak, or if you prefer, you can enter your comments in the Q&A section of the Zoom application, and we would just need your full name and address to recognize your comment or question. We can give that a minute. I'm not seeing any hands. I'm not seeing anything in the Q&A. All right. Are there any other board member or staff or comments or questions from anybody? If not, I think we could start. Yes, Maureen.
I just have one question. I did not see a swing in there, did I?
No.
No. Okay. Because that was the one you were trying for, that one that's over at the school street, which no longer is available.
Right.
Yeah, we said it's no longer available. There was that's the type of thing that needed constant supervision. I think was part of the reason they discontinued it. So there's no swing, but that Rock With Me does move. I mean, it's a moving.
Okay, thank you.
They had looked at putting a swing, one of those larger plastic swings that you could transfer a child to from a wheelchair onto a handicapped accessible swing, but that's very limited, and what they're proposing is far more accessible and allows children to get around on their own. So it seems to be a better opportunity. It seems to be more in keeping with the board's original proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right, I think we can start entertaining motions then.
I'll take it. I move that the planning board approve the revised project plans, including playground equipment plans dated May 12th, 2026, in place of the plans approved by the board on April 7th, 2026, and grant the requested amendments to mixed-use multifamily residential overlay district, MUMFROD, special permit and consolidated earth material movement, environmental impact and design review, EIDR. Approval for the block at 22 and 40 Everett Street, as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed with the office of the town clerk on December 9th, 2025, with the following conditions. 1, except as modified by the conditions and finding hereof, the project shall comply with the project plans and with the conditions of all prior decisions for the property in all respects, and the applicant shall pursue completion of the project with reasonable diligence and continuity. 2, the applicant shall submit final revised project plan showing a total of 256 parking spaces and incorporating a sign noting that the playground is open to all and not limited to residents of the block. The applicant shall submit said plans for review and approval by the acting town planner. A copy of this decision and the project plan shall be kept on the project site at all times during construction. The decision shall lapse if a substantial use thereof or construction thereunder has not begun except for good cause within 2 years following the grant thereof. The planning board may extend such approval for good cause upon the written request of the applicant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Mike?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That motion carries.
Great. Was there another motion or is that it?
There's a motion now to close the public hearing.
Yeah. I move that the planning board close the public hearing for consideration of amendments to the mixed-use multifamily residential overlay district, MUMFROD, special permit and consolidated earth material movement, environmental impact and design review, EIDR, approval for the block at 22 and 40 Everett Street as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed with the town clerk on December 9th, 2025.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Maureen?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That motion carries. Public hearing is closed. Thank you, Mr. Zaka, and I'm looking forward to seeing that playground when it's done.
Great. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, then our next agenda item is, sorry, things are loading slowly today. Rules and regulations, continuation of public hearing for consideration of amendments to various planning board rules and regulations, standards, guidelines, and meeting procedures continued from April 7th, 2026. And tonight we will specifically be discussing scenic road rules and regs and planning board meeting procedures.
That's right. So would you like to take one before the other?
I don't have a preference. Do my colleagues have a preference?
No.
No preference.
Okay, let's go with the planning board policies and procedures then. So this document you reviewed at your last meeting. Make sure I grab the right one. And you had requested some additional language to be reviewed by Mike. And Mike, this was language around the conflict of interest section and the ex parte communication section. So that is right here. And Mike revised this. I don't know, do you want to explain the changes you made or your intentions with this?
Yeah, sure. I just tried to state only what needed to be stated. In the conflict of interest section, I do in the draft does, call for a board member to remove themselves in certain situations, but I tried to word it in a way where there wouldn't be really a question. So I think in the second paragraph, the board member shall inform the town, where are we here? Sorry, I'm just reading it again. Yeah, so in the event a board member is informed, if you're informed by the State Ethics Commission that there's a likely conflict, right? The commission might not give 100% absolute certainty to any advice, but if they inform a board member that there's likely a conflict, which I think they do sometimes. I've talked to them about certain things related to campaign, and they give me pretty strong guidance in certain areas. So if that's the case, then the board member shall remove themselves. Or if the board member feels like there's likely a conflict, the board member should probably remove themselves too. So that's I guess the two provisions to discuss, to make sure everyone's comfortable with those standards. But I think that's about it.
And then I think you also amended the ex parte communication section.
Yeah, so I just made that so it's specific to an applicant's pending application before the board. So it's narrowed from what the draft read previously.
Can I ask just one question? We don't know at the same time that an application may be pending as staff or someone else. In other words, it might be pending, but we as a board member have not been apprised upon it. So I just thought, and I say this in part just because being an outside attorney, sometimes I have to just keep an eye on some of the things if they get into Norfolk County or whatever to make sure that there is nothing. But I would say I would just like a notice provision or some words of a something as notice, because, for example, just using Mr. Zaka as a issue, if I as an attorney had some matter going on with Mr. Zaka and might need to recuse myself, but might not know that he's representing some other group or someone else who has brought something to the attention of Nora, but it hasn't either made to an agenda or we haven't got notification of it. I could have a conflict and intend to remove myself, but don't know of it yet.
Yeah, I would say the way this is written, Phil, and I think it needs to be tweaked a little bit, but the conversation that's not allowed is about a potential application or a pending application. So the board member cannot talk about board business with that applicant, right? So if that's going on, I think it's going to be aware that a potential application is going to be filed soon, or there's a pending application, right? If you're talking about something that's going to be coming before the board. So that was the intent of what I was trying to draft.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. I read the clause before the or as being so in other words, you say no individual board member or group of board members shall meet or converse outside of a board meeting with any applicant. Or then it goes on, but the concerning such applicants pending application before the board, when I read it, I didn't view that phrase as part of the initial meet or converse outside of a board meeting. You see what I'm saying? So in other words, if I spoke
we could move that up, I think.
Yeah, if I spoke to Mr. Zaka in my first reading of this, I might, if I spoke to Zaka about something which has nothing to do with this, not knowing of a pending application, had just met with him or communicated with him outside of a board meeting and not knowing what that meant. So that, I guess that's just, I just want to make sure that we tweak it a little bit because I had a little bit of a concern on that.
Yeah, Nora,
Just
so
to
we
make
could
sure that
move,
I stay within the rule. Go ahead.
yeah, so Nora, if you don't mind, we could move concerning such applicant, that phrase before the board, we can move that right after board meeting.
Maybe if we say,
I don't
if
know
we
why it's
could,
not letting me. Let me see. Give me 1 second. Edit. Okay.
Mike, can I propose if we
Yeah,
start the
please.
sentence, if we start the sentence with respect to any such applicant's pending application before the board, comma, then go to no individual board member, comma, no group of board members, comma, shall meet or converse outside of a board meeting with any applicant or applicant's representative, comma, unless previously authorized to do so by majority vote. So if
Okay.
we move,
Couldn't catch all that. I got the beginning with respect to any applicant's pending application before the board. No individual board member nor group of board members shall meet or converse outside of a board meeting with any applicant or applicant's representative.
Yeah, with such applicant's representative.
with
Yeah.
any applicant, such applicant or applicant's representative.
Yep. Yep.
And then I think, is it duplicative to keep the concerning such applicants pending application before the board?
You would delete that.
Yeah, so after the word representative, Nora, deleting that till the comma. Then I think it applies to both, and that would soothe my concern that I had when I first read it.
Yeah, and you could put, well, you could put with respect to any applicant's pending or soon to be pending application, but the board can
Or,
make the
or
decision.
anticipated, I would say,
Right.
or anticipated.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that.
With respect to, yeah.
With respect to any applicant's pending or anticipated application before the board, comma, no individual board member, comma, no group of board members shall meet or converse outside of a board meeting with such applicant or applicant's representative. I feel good with that. I hope everybody else, any other comments?
Looks good to me.
Yeah, I defer to our attorney colleagues here. So I appreciate that input. I'm sorry, I just need 50.
Nora, you're okay with that? I think it just clarifies the way it reads.
That's fine.
Okay. That was my only issue. I'm good with everything else.
Yeah,
Except there's a typo in 10.
In
The
10?
heading, the subheading in 10.
Yes.
The word
Oh.
executive. Thank you.
Maureen, you didn't catch that one.
Well, can you believe that, Nora?
Maureen, I got
Thank
you on
you,
one.
Phil.
Maureen is our expert proofreader.
But I have a few questions.
Okay.
All yours, Maureen.
All right, I was just looking under membership, number 2. And I was just reading, one associate planning board member may be appointed by a joint meeting. Is that not something, should it be shall?
There's an opportunity to do it. You don't have to do it. So if you said shall, then in a case where there is no one volunteering to be that associate member, you put yourselves at jeopardy. So it's may.
So-
We have had an associate member for as long as I can remember.
Okay, because I was just wondering, because, if there ever becomes a problem and you don't have an associate to fill in a spot that somebody may have to recuse themselves, then what do you do?
Then you have to
But still-
either delay the hearing or re-advertise the hearing. But
Okay.
it's in our charter that says that you may appoint the
Mhm.
associate member, so I don't feel like the board's policies and procedures can go beyond what the charter says.
Okay, thank you.
Nora,
And
sorry, I had one quick question on associates while we're on it, if that's okay. I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Go for
I've been, we had, do we have one or
Two.
two? Are we allowed one or two
So
associates?
our charter had allowed us to have two, but it also said, as in keeping with state law, up to two in keeping with state law. And state law requires a 5-member board to have no more than one. If we were
I
a
see.
7-member board,
Oh.
we could have two.
Ah,
So
okay.
in the past, Westwood had appointed two, but technically we're only allowed to appoint one. I don't believe there was any instance where the two served together, so we didn't create any real violations.
Okay. Thank you. I was a little unclear on where that landed. So thank you. And Maureen, I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but the discussion about associates prompted.
triggered something.
Yes.
And can you just clarify for me, special permit? What do you consider a special permit? Is it just that special permit that we just reviewed?
That is one type of special permit. So the bylaw has many different areas where special permits are required. And then other areas where it's just a site plan review, what we call EIDR, limited EIDR, or administrative EIDR. That's a different animal than a special permit. A special permit is specifically required in the FMUOD district. It can be required from MUMFROD, the mixed-use multifamily overlay district. In the case of the block at 2240 Everett Street, that is a MUMFROD special permit. There's also an opportunity, for just a MUMFROD site plan review application. Shared driveways, that's a special permit section of the bylaw. In our open space residential development section of the bylaw, you can have EIDR or special permit in any case where there's a density bonus, like for a senior residential development, something like we developed at the former lodge, all now known as the Homes at 45. That was a special permit. So there's several sections of the bylaw that require special permits, and a state law only authorizes an associate planning board member to join as a member of the board for special permits. They're not allowed to join for EIDR or for subdivision or scenic road approval or anything like that.
So they can only
They can only
participate.
serve for special permits, which require a supermajority vote. So all those other decisions only require a majority vote.
Okay. Thank you. And can I keep going?
Yes.
And would you just clarify for me the statutory regulations? Are those all of the statutory regulations?
I just want to see where it's cited so I can say that.
It was 4. Standards of conduct. I see the open meeting law, the conflict of interest. Are those the statutory regulations? Are those all of them?
So those are the ones that apply to the planning board, other than the statutes of the zoning act and the subdivision control act. Those are also statutory requirements, but these are statutory requirements for conduct of board members.
And I think that was it. I just needed those clarified.
Excellent.
Oh,
Are
no, I
you-
have one more.
One more? Okay.
Sorry, Nora, I didn't get them all
That's
to
all right.
you.
That's all right.
And what matters constitute a supermajority?
Special permits. Special permits require 4 votes of the 5 board member,
Okay.
and that's why they allow associate members to sit if a board member is not available.
And I think and that was it.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. Any other comments or feedback on policies and procedures?
Just a small thing. Nora, I think I sent it to you, but I might have missed it. There was something with the numbering in the meeting procedures section where I think it just added like an extra bullet or something.
I'm looking for
Right
it.
there. See the C that's kind of floating.
Oh, yes, I see that. Yes.
And then it looks like
Right, or is that a separate? I think that maybe that's supposed to be C. Nope, this is the problem. Let's see, the applicant or applicant's representative shall present their case to the board. The chair shall invite questions and comments in the following order. This is the order here, unless the chair has determined a different order which would provide clarification or necessary information. The chair shall invite responses to comments from the applicant or the applicant's representatives. Then the chair shall declare the evidentiary portion of the public hearing to be complete. The board shall deliberate and vote on the application. The board shall close the public hearing unless the application is to be continued. I believe that's the correct order.
Yeah, and then it looks like it didn't correct, so now it says DFG instead of DEF.
Oh, yeah, it was missing the E.
Okay, that was it.
All right. Any other comments, questions, feedback on this from board members and staff? I'll go to public comment then. And if anyone thinks of anything else, we can loop back to board members before we take a vote. If there's any members of the public who would like to comment or ask questions about the proposed planning board policies and procedures, feel free to raise your hand and we can promote you to speak, or you can use the Q&A section of the Zoom application. We will just need your full name and address for the record. I'll give that a minute. I'm not seeing anything. My only comment was thank you to everyone for prioritizing this one. I think there's many reasons why it's a good idea to get this one codified, but I'm especially excited about giving our staff the ability to manage our agenda and keep it in appropriate length so that we all aren't sitting here at midnight regularly. So I'm very excited about that. And thank you to everyone who contributed to edits and whatnot. All right, I think we've given it time for public comment. I'm not seeing any. So if there are no further board member questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
Do you want to make a motion to approve them at once? So we'll go through
Sure.
the scenic roads first.
Perfect.
All right. Other than typographical corrections, I think this is exactly the same as it was the last time you saw it. I don't think you discussed it in detail yet. So these changes are all non-substantive changes to this section. It reorders the section to make it more clear. It doesn't change any of the requirements other than the requirements for electronic permit submission, electronic application submission rather than paper application submission. Other than that, it's essentially the same as the existing one. We just have terms that are more clear. All of the definitions remain what they are in the existing one. All of the designated streets are the same. The criteria for designation of a street, the application fees, the inspection fees, they have not changed. So this is mainly what's changed. The application plan requirements, we now have an official application form that is an electronic form.
I see Maureen's hand up. I was gonna say, Nora, is that a good place to pause or?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Maureen. You're muted, Maureen, sorry. I don't want to miss what you have to say.
You might want to miss it. Nora, head back up to the very first page, please. Because I think you want to get rid of 1.5 because we got rid of the application submittal because it was a repeat. Correct?
I think you're right. Let me just,
Because it was 6
it's
point.
in the table of contents.
Yes.
Good catch, Maureen.
Almost as good as yours, Phil.
Not at all. That's a great catch.
And here I go. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
And because I sent you an email, Nora.
About 1.5, yes. And I took it out. I didn't take it out of the table of contents.
Okay, and then I sent you a follow-up email.
That I'm
in
not sure if
section
I
5.
saw.
Huh?
I might not have seen that then. So what section
Oh.
was that?
All right. So the next one was section 5.2.2.
Mm-hmm.
And was that? I think in 2023, it would revert, it was the inspection fees, it was electronic application. Is that true? By mail?
So
And did you
we do
want it?
handle everything by the electronic
Because
application.
see how it says applicant by mail, postage prepaid?
Yeah, that should probably be. Let me look to see what the what we say in another section of the bylaw, so I can have the language consistent. Let me go back to that.
Look at the one for 2023. Excuse me. Do you want me to read it to you?
Yeah, I'm trying to find
I can
the.
read it to you what I have in front of me.
Okay, go right ahead.
It says, if it is determined that an inspection fee is required, then the town planner shall notify the applicant through the electronic application portal within 7, and then 7 in parentheses, days of such decision. Did I go too fast?
Nope.
You ready for more?
Yep.
The required fee must be received by the town within 14, and then 14 in parentheses again, days after the receipt of the notification.
Okay. So let me show this back to you. All right. Does that look correct to you?
I think it says, then the town planner shall notify the applicant. That's what it said in 2023.
Okay. That makes sense?
That looks like that's a good catch, Maureen. That looks good.
And get rid of it by, after applicant, get rid of by. That's, yeah, that one's good. And do you want the next one?
Yes.
These are the ones I think I emailed you. And this was on section 6.4.
Okay.
I'm having problems with including all proposed alteration to trees. Because I think what it said before was alterations to or removal of trees and or stone walls.
I'm trying to find that. So that's section 6.5.
6.4.
6.4. Statement of work.
Okay. Instead of all proposed alterations to trees, what?
Well, it said previously alterations to or removal of trees and or stone walls. Or.
I think it has to be and or stone walls, because you could remove trees and walls, or you could remove just trees, or you could remove just walls.
But I guess what I was having a problem with was you really can't alter trees, right?
Well, you can,
You
yes.
could take a
You
tree,
can
I mean, take a branch
You can
off.
cut them
take
back.
limbs off, substantially change the trees.
But that was what it said in the previous one.
Would you prefer if it says including removal of trees and or alterations to stone walls?
Alterations to or removal of trees and or stone walls.
So that's what I have now, alterations to or removal of.
Tree, yep, and or stone walls. Yep.
Mhm.
Can you say any or all? Nora is going to all.
Where am I saying that? Sorry, including,
After the including. Any and all. Good catch, Maureen. I like your changes.
Well, they were from you guys in 2023.
I'll tell you, the best thing a lawyer can do is have copy and paste.
All right. And ready?
yep,
This was not the 7.2
got it.
and the last sentence, and I don't know, all fees required shall be unless, should not that be unless otherwise waived by the board?
Yes.
That makes sense to everybody?
It does?
Mm-hmm.
And 10.1, please. And I'm just getting these when I compared the 2023 to the 2020, this new one.
Mm-hmm.
When I compared them, I just found these things missing, so I'm just, or they were altered.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where I got these from.
Okay.
And it was in there, there was also a referral to the health division, which has been since removed.
All right. Shouldn't have been. So.
Okay. And where it says to make recommendations with 21 days, I'm just curious as to why every other rule and regulation is 35 days and this one is.
So in rules and regulations that are based on zoning enabling legislation, they're required to have 35 days
5
notice.
days. Okay.
Yes. There's no requirement here. So you can make this whatever you choose to make it. 21 days is generally sufficient in an electronic application, but we are required by law to allow 35 days on the others.
On the others, okay. So this here is because it is, are we considering this as a scenic road application to alter, or is this for, is that what this is for? This alteration to a scenic road?
Yes, this is just the regulations for scenic roads. So it's saying in the referral to other departments, we give them 21 days. It allows us to act a little more quickly on this, but if you prefer to have it 35 days, like the other, like special permits have to be 35 days, subdivisions have to be 35 days. If you want to make it that, you can. This allows us to move more quickly. So in a case where you have, someone who's already taken down a tree or who's looking to take down a tree, I think it's helpful to be able to get this before the board as quickly as possible.
I might have to disagree with that. I think 35, like the others, just to keep it consistent, is what my thought was, because everything else was 35. And to be honest with you, some people just don't know when they cut down the trees and then we're doing it after the fact.
Well, this would be more likely you would be doing it after the longer this time period is, the more likely it is you'll have someone just cut it down. So it's 20. The reason why we put it at 21 days was to get it to the board as soon as possible. But if you want to change it to 31, I don't have any strong feelings about this.
I kind of would like to leave 21. I think especially in certain instances, we would want to move a little more quickly, and this is one of them. I don't know how the others feel.
No, just,
I have
I'm
a
just trying to keep
clarifying
everything.
question. Because I'm leaning towards consistent, but I guess what the 21 days, the deemed a lack of opposition, that means by the other boards, not the planning board, or does that?
This means that if we've sent out a request to all the boards that it's not boards, it's divisions mostly. We send when we get an application in, the electronic application has work steps that go out to notify the Department of Public Works, the Fire Department, Police Department, Division, Conservation Division, Building Division, and all of those entities have 21 days to respond. Now, in actuality, most of them respond within 3 or 4 days when they get the electronic notification. So 21 days is an awful lot of time. 35 days is an exceptional amount of time, but since we're required by the Zoning Enabling Act to give 31 days notice, we have to do it in those other ones. There is no requirement here. So this is completely up to the board to decide what it is that you want.
But this is different than that applies to the other people in the process, the constructive approval if our board fails to act within 30 days. That's different, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is internal municipal response times as compared to otherwise.
Yes.
Okay.
And I lean towards a shorter time period.
You to refer to the other boards
Yes.
and expect a response back within 3 weeks, since it's now going through the electronic.
Well, yeah, and they, quite honestly, in some respects, they should move more quickly.
Mhm.
They should.
And there's nothing stopping you from giving them more time. Say, for instance, you were looking for a comment on a scenic road application from the select board, and the select board did not meet in time to get you that comment within 21 days. When the planning board opens its hearing, you can continue your hearing to await that comment if you want it, but you're able to act if you don't want to wait. This section dictates how long the planning board has to wait for comments.
In order to get a response.
Yes, but
From others.
it's not a maximum, it's a minimum.
Gotcha.
Right. And it's a response from others. And I think it would be good for us to be able to move more quickly.
Mhm.
It's especially important with applications where you might be requiring someone to plant trees, and we have very short windows in which to plant trees. You can plant between April 15th and June 15th, and then again between September 15th and November 15th. And so when you have an application that comes in and it's getting close to that deadline, you want to be able to move it as soon as possible so that you can actually get the trees planted.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments on that one? I was just comparing it to all the others. So we're going to leave that at 21. Okay. And then I think, the section 12.2. And maybe this may be the same reason why everything else for decision was 90 days. Like, so is that the same reason why?
So they're under different laws. So in the Zoning Enabling Act, you have a 90-day term for a decision, and after that, it's constructive approval. In the Scenic Road law, you have 30 days.
So we don't have any discretion on that. It has to
You
be.
do not. No, that's consistent with state law.
Okay, perfect. And then last but not least, I think that was it. And it was the constructive approval. Because I know this was something that was added also in 2023 that hadn't been in the previous one.
Right, that comes from the state law. So it's
Okay.
it's putting the law into the regulations to make it clear to everyone what happens. It's something we always had to abide by. So if the board did not act within 30 days, they would have to, the applicant could go ahead and cut down the tree or move the wall or whatever it was they were looking to do. So that's based on the state law.
In
So
the
the
con-
constructive, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in the constructive approval, the applicant must notify the parties of interest by first-class mail, not just by mail.
Okay,
Postage prepaid.
I can write that. I'm trying to find it.
It's about 3 or 4 lines from the bottom of 12.5. 4 lines up
Party
from the
with you.
bottom. First
Got it.
class mail. Yep.
So that was the 30 days because it is state law.
Yes.
Okay. And I think that was it.
Good comments, Maureen. I like your comments.
Thank you. Anybody else, or did I hog all the time?
I wouldn't call it hogging. I think you were incredibly thorough and
And improvement.
yeah, you caught a lot of things, which is great. Any other
I
board
figure if
member?
it's going to be around for another 22 years, you might as well get it right, correct?
Absolutely.
That's correct.
Absolutely. Any other board member comments? It looks like we do have some public comments. So, were there any other board member questions, comments, revisions, etc.?
No.
Maureen did all the heavy lifting.
Yep.
All right, then I will open it up to public comment at this point. Please raise your hand and we will promote you to speak, or as someone already has, we can use the Q&A feature. We just need your full name and address. We have one public comment from Kristen Dempsey at 565 Everett Street. For tree wall removal, should it say remove and replace with similar or better? That way a wall is removed and not replaced. Could we go back to that
Yes.
section?
What section is that?
It doesn't have a section number in the comment. Tree or wall removal.
That's a comment that I made about the tree and wall, tree and
Yeah,
or.
yeah.
I think that was 6.4.
Thank you. For trees and understones defined. Remove and
I think we
replace.
kind of straightened that out a little, didn't we? Didn't we add
I'll ask Ms.
any
Dempsey.
alterations?
This is saying any alterations or removal of trees and or stone walls. So this would refer to both alterations or removal of a stone wall.
And I'll ask the resident, Ms. Dempsey, if there's a specific if it's not this section, if there was another spot that you were referring to, if you could let us know, because we don't want to miss it.
Yeah, I think
But
we clarified that. I think
I
that
think
was
we did. I think we did, but I want to make sure we're understanding what the resident's asking fully. But I agree. I think we did that, but if she's still here.
I think maybe we don't need the word to. Any and all alterations.
I
or
think
removal.
I guess that's right.
Including
I
any
think
and
she
or
might be referring, yeah, she's referring to a new wall being put back in if it's removed.
That's an
Yes.
alteration.
Alteration
So if you
plans.
take out a wall and put a wall back, that would be considered an alteration of a wall. But so in a case where you have someone who removes a stone wall and replaces it in kind, that doesn't require scenic road approval.
I think she's saying require replacement, where maybe she's not understanding that sometimes it's removal and there is no replacement.
She did clarify saying I wanted to make sure that things were being replaced once removed. Thank you. I guess that the question is, what I'm hearing is we can't always require that. Is that true?
No, so let me show you the definition section where it talks to what is removal of a stone wall. Let me find
you
that.
just
This comes
missed it.
straight out of the law.
It's like 2.5.
2.1.5.
Tearing down or destruction of stone walls shall mean the destruction of more than 15 linear feet of stone wall involving more than 1 cubic foot of wall material per linear foot above existing grade, but shall not be construed to include temporary removal and replacement at the same location with the same materials. So you're allowed to just eliminate 15 feet of a stone wall, and that's perfectly fine. You're also allowed to remove an entire wall regardless of the length, save the stones, do whatever you're doing on your property, and put it back in the same location. You're allowed to do both of those things, and those do not require any scenic road approval. If you want to remove 16 feet of wall without replacing it, then you need to come back for scenic road approval.
Thank you.
And that specific definition comes straight from the law. We don't have any ability to
State law.
change that requirement.
So the statute says the 15 linear feet.
It does.
Okay.
So again, that's something we don't have discretion over, if I'm hearing correctly.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Looks like we have another question. Oh, Beth, we just need your address. I'm sorry. Thank you. Beth Talija, 5 White Lane. I have not had time to look in detail, but can I ask that the Historical Commission be notified of any application which will affect the stone walls? That's a good question. Is that something we can require?
You can. So in that section where you notify boards, you can add that in the case of a stone wall, you notify the Historical Commission.
I would be in favor of that. I think that's, most of those walls are, looking at them, I would assume they're in their purview. There aren't that many modern walls on the scenic roads we have. So I would be in favor of that. Do we, I'm not being flipped. Do we still have a historical commission? I know they
We
didn't
do.
have a quorum for a while. Do we have a full complement at this point?
We do.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Excellent.
Shoot.
Nor do we want to say removal or alteration
Sure.
of a stone wall. There you go. I think that's good.
Thank you. Any other revisions, edits, proposed changes? I'm not seeing anything else new in the Q&A. Let me just see. I'm not seeing any hands up either. Any other questions, comments, discussion on scenic roads?
This looks good.
I appreciate the input from board members and from the residents who offered comment. Thank you to all of you. If there's no further discussion, I'm not seeing any hands raised and I'm not seeing anything else in the Q&A. Then I believe now would be the time to entertain motions, Nora.
All right.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
How do I get rid of everything that's being said is now coming up on my screen? How do I get rid of that thing?
Oh, do you have like captions turned on or something?
Oh,
It's
yes.
probably under audio.
If you
Nope,
press
I had
more, do you see
I
the,
hit captions.
Yes. Yeah. Say
do you
click
see
on
more?
show captions again, so they'll
Yeah,
go away.
turn off captions.
Thank you. I learn something new every day, huh?
I didn't know that the Zoom app had the option for captions, so I learned something new today too. All right. Looks like we have a couple of motions.
Oh, I'll do this one since I talk so much. I move that the planning board adopt the following sets of rules, regulations, standards, and guidelines as revised at the May 19, 2026 public hearing session. Planning board policies and procedures, scenic road rules and regulations.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Maureen?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That motion carries. Yay. And then we need to continue the public hearing.
All for the
Yes.
others. All right. I move that the planning board continue the public hearing for amendments to various planning board rules and regulations, standards, guidelines, and meeting procedures to the planning board meeting, which will be held via Zoom on Tuesday, June 2nd, June 2, 2026 at 7 p.m., where a Zoom link and associated call numbers will be provided on the town's calendar on the homepage at https://www.townhall.westwood.ma.us/
Second.
I have a motion and a second, and I actually have further discussion before we vote. Which two do we want to pick for the next meeting? Does staff have any advice on that? Or is there anything that you feel is pressing, or is it really up to us?
I think it's up to you.
Okay. Anybody have two that they are particularly interested in from the list, which I believe was,
Oh, can you show us the list,
Yeah.
Yeah, just 1 minute.
please?
I realized that we hadn't picked two out of the hat for the next working session. So
I'm interested in the automobile parking one because I've looked into it a little bit. I wonder, I was just curious if some towns have expanded guidelines there, given increasing some
Traffic.
size in cars. Some of these bylaws are pretty old and dated. So something I was interested in, especially given we were just talking about driveway width, the turnaround for the daycare facility that we had the
Mhm.
discussion on last time. So it was just top of mind.
okay, that sounds good to me. Unless my colleagues object, or if anyone objects, why don't we do automobile parking design standards? And does anyone have a hankering to do one of these in particular out of what's left?
Why don't we do the traffic study guidelines?
Yeah,
Is that a
it
new
goes hand
one?
in hand.
I like that.
Yeah, I
That's
like that too.
Yep, not new. We've had that before,
Oh,
so
have you?
we
Okay.
could do that. So we'll move those two to the top of the list and we'll take them up on June 2nd. Automobile parking design standards and traffic study guidelines.
Excellent. Nora, just for my education, I feel like University Ave mixed use one is probably a bigger one. Should we, just for thinking ahead, is that one we probably shouldn't stack with other things, or stack with a short one, or?
So it is a large one. It's very similar to our, say, special permit regulations, but there are very few changes being made to it. It's really just changing it for the electronic submission. We aren't changing much in that. And I wouldn't encourage us to change much in that because that was very specific to the section of the bylaw that was adopted by town meeting. And it was the regulations were actually shown to town meeting before we adopted the bylaw. You have the right to amend them however you'd like, but that's a section that's kind of fully baked and I wouldn't make too many changes.
We can always do it with the bicycle parking design guidelines, which is short.
That's true. Okay, excellent. I just like to think ahead a little bit we're getting through them and I'm very excited about that. Excellent. All right. So we have a motion and a second. We have picked our two for the next meeting. So with that, I'll take roll call. Maureen,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That motion carries. All right. Then our next agenda item is 40Y. Continuing of our discussion of the exploration of Chapter 40Y Starter Home Zoning District. I guess I'll turn it over to Amanda and potentially Phil and Nora. If you have any updates for us, or if there's further discussion you'd like to have at this time.
Yeah, so I had sent an email not long after our last meeting, just with some responses I got from the state on some of the questions that had come up. And so, and also some additional clarifications that they had as well, just as they started having these conversations. And so the first thing was, in terms of communities that have shown interest in this, they said there's been about a dozen or so, but the only one that has filed an official application is oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank. Brockton, sorry. And it wasn't actually the city that filed, it was a developer who filed the application with permission from the city. So otherwise, no one is actively working on it beyond that. In terms of the mixed use component, it turns out the rules around it are much looser. So basically, their concern is they want to make sure the mixed use doesn't detract from the number of residential units it produces. So something like a corner store, like was discussed at the last meeting, would be appropriate. But, you know, if it's 50% of the district needs to be commercial, they'd probably flag it. And then another thing that they pointed out was that in terms of applying it to existing neighborhoods, you could in theory do that. However, it would affect your incentive payments. So since you're really only getting paid for the units that are produced as a result of the zoning, you essentially it wouldn't have any benefit because you wouldn't be adding units. You would just be applying it to existing units. And then last but not least, they said a developer is able to do a lower density if they want. We just have to allow up to 4 units per acre by right. So those were the main clarifying points. But otherwise, I will hand it over to the board from here.
Thank you. Any board member questions, comments, thoughts?
What I would ask is that we get a sense of the board because there's and maybe either, I don't know if we should create a subcommittee or designee to further explore it, because there's a number of things that still need to be done, and partnering with a developer. And it struck me that we should have a point of contact perhaps, or a subcommittee to further explore the 40Y option. But it's not necessarily an easy option for us to just jump right in. The more that I've been looking into it.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts? Anyone? I'm open to suggestions because I'm interested in it.
I see Maureen's hand up, so we'll go to Maureen next.
I actually looked a little bit into that piece of property everybody keeps talking about beside Dunkin' Donuts off of the Providence Highway.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Nora kind of responded that, Nora, what did you say about that piece of land? Because I was concerned about what had been on there.
So it's used as a laydown yard for the Mass Highway Department. It has salt sheds. It has equipment that are related to transportation. So for and any equipment they might need to improve roadways or rail yards. So it might contain railroad ties or definitely has salt. It has bulldozers. It has equipment for removal of trash. It has brush cutters. It is, for the eastern part of Massachusetts, it is Mass DOT's, I don't know, maintenance yard, I guess, where they keep their equipment that they then farm out to the highways and the railroads around here.
Nora, has there been any testing for hazardous materials, waste, anything like that?
None that I'm aware of, but the town has no jurisdiction over it. So it has been in place for over 50 years.
Yeah.
That's why it would not shock me.
Because I had one resident reach out to me about it, saying, he thought he had seen railroad ties there, which of course have got the creosote embedded in them.
And there are railroad ties along the railroad right next to it too. So that's not surprising.
I was kind of like, I'm not sure. And you said the EPA, they don't have to follow anything?
No, I didn't say they don't have to follow EPA. I said we don't have jurisdiction over that. So that's between the state and EPA, and the town has no involvement.
All right. Yeah. And the only thing I read that said about that area was it needed to have like a berm around the edge of the parking area is what one of the requirements was, so that things wouldn't drain off into other areas. So I know that was one area that has been mentioned numerous times. I'm just wondering whether or not that's.
Yeah, so that was an area that this board chose to include within the mixed-use multifamily overlay district. So that's part of our MBTA zoning.
Okay. I thought maybe they were looking for 40Y there also.
I think 40Y was, so there's the housing production plan. Amanda, if you want to speak to that at all, which 40Y is one option for a way to develop additional affordable housing. And I think that property was specifically mentioned.
Mhm.
Yeah, so they were actually separate strategies. One strategy was, which was a requirement of the plan, you had to identify a piece of land for housing redevelopment, and the committee, the housing partnership, chose that just given the limitations with land in Westwood. And then they also had a separate strategy pertaining to exploring 40Y. So they were separate things, but a lot of people connected the dots, but they're not explicitly connected. They don't have to be.
Thank you.
Any other? Yes, Mike.
So I have reviewed the 40Y regulations, and I did do some digging around. This was probably about a month ago. I do need to learn more and continue to educate myself on this topic. I generally I like the idea. I like the idea of being able to create neighborhoods where the housing costs can be controlled, there's benefit to the town, etc. I do think it's more beneficial in an area of, for instance, undeveloped land where you can kind of create a new neighborhood or, again, a new smaller neighborhood. I don't know how I feel about it in terms of putting it into a place that's already dense. Um, so, for instance, putting it in the highway spot that we've been talking about is, I mean, it's one of the most, it's just a very dense area. But if there was a place in town where there was a spot where, you could kind of extend a neighborhood or create a new small neighborhood, I do think it's a good idea to explore. I think whoever said it tonight hit the nail on the head. And I think it was Amanda that it's not about if you can create something new in town where there's room to develop. I think that's probably the best use of this versus sticking it somewhere where there's already a million things around it. Um, Towns such as Sudbury and towns kind of further out west, I know they have a lot of undeveloped land, and in those towns, I think this is a great idea to form these neighborhoods where the cost of housing can be controlled. And again, I'm interested in this if there's a spot in Westwood that's less dense and that kind of makes sense to extend the neighborhood into.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, but I did see.
I'm all done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I saw Tim's hand go up
Yeah,
too.
Mike, I would just step in and say this isn't make sure I understand it correct. This isn't controlled pricing. Correct? It's
Correct. So some of the units, depending on the size of the development, some of the units would have to be affordable, which
I think it was like
so
10%. Yeah.
yeah.
This is where I could just go back to what we talked about last week. And Mike, I realize you weren't here. I just really struggle with the economics working in a town where the property values are where they're at, and I think that's uh, confirmed by some of the research, Amanda, that you provided. Thank you for doing that on like what towns have been actively just, reaching out and doing this. So I don't know. I appreciate where you're coming from, Phil, and wanting to dig into it more. I think I would be of the mindset of maybe putting a pin in it and seeing how things develop with interest amongst other towns. I just don't know if it's worth dedicating a lot of time and maybe the answer is we wouldn't be dedicating a lot of time and resource by just exploring. But I think I'd be of the mindset of I don't know if that's the most efficient use of time. In my opinion, I genuinely just don't see the economics working here for this type of opportunity.
Well, I mean, that's the core issue, which is we're not going to determine the economics, and
Yeah, but
we can
what's
create
that?
all the
What's the
incentives that
alternative?
But
well, no, we can
isn't
create an
is
incentive, which is not an economical or private sector incentive. For example, which is partly why I was mentioning the DOT property. If it has hazardous waste on it, that immediately is probably going to cause the cost to simply be uneconomic. No one's going to put in a neighborhood where they have cleanup costs just to get a creation, particularly where, yes, it may be even in Westwood, but it wouldn't be a McMansion or something like that. And it's not going to be something like the Everett Street proposal. The density would not be probably significant enough for it to be able to be done. So in terms of economics, that's only going to be decided by the Giorgios of the world,
Yeah,
which is, and if they don't participate, we can do all the bells and whistles under 40Y that but if they go nowhere because no one is interested, they just want to build larger homes. But I guess the point that I have is we don't fully know whether it's a useful tool unless we explore to see will this tool have some impact,
yeah.
and
No,
that's my point.
I hear you. The economics I'm referring to is not the cost benefit of developing and turning it around, and it's I was just referring to less so economics, I guess is a wrong term, and more just the fair market value of properties. This isn't like controlled pricing, so there would still be entry level home prices probably comparable to what some of those very smaller lots in town that already exist, and it's just going to have an economic impact on other properties where I don't know if it creates like necessarily more affordable housing for folks. I think it just changes the landscape and it changes the overall dynamic. That's the economics that I was referring to, and I think
Yeah,
like
but I think one of the things that I think you're missing the point is whether or not if you are required to have a certain lot size, setback, frontage, all the things that almost by definition require a larger home, you're going to get a larger home. If we as a town adjust that, which is, I'll use the maze as an example, or you create, or you try to create a neighborhood, and which does not necessarily mean you're building, mini skyscrapers. They go vertical, but they have, tiny setbacks, tiny limited small lots, etc. You're not going to create, because it just simply wouldn't be approved. It wouldn't be allowed. But it may be economic on a smaller lot, not a huge lot, which you're going to build a, $5 million home on, to build a $500,000 home as compared to $1 million home. And I think we're assuming that only the Giorgio options exist. And I have a lot of contractor clients, and they look at opportunities, but they also look at whether or not, it's the level of hurdles. I'm not going to say I'm an expert in it, but I do think it is something where we should try to, and part of the reason I have perhaps a greater interest in this is having been on the housing partnership for the last few years. It has sensitized me a great deal as to the difficulties for almost all families that are starting out to try to get into the home, and I've talked to older folks to be able to stay in Westwood. It's really tough, and that's part of my interest because we being in the partnership, and I give Amanda huge kudos because she's given us tremendous amount of information. And I've learned a lot as a result.
Thank you. I have some thoughts, but I'll wait if other people still have thoughts.
Yeah, no, I hear you, Phil. I just genuinely don't think that this program does much other than uh, create home values for folks that are already high enough and high above where I think it defeats the purpose of trying to generate affordable housing, right? I think it's just going to level set to entry level home starter home price in this town, which without any rent, without any control on it, it's just going to level set to a point where I don't know, other than volume, I don't know. I'm struggling with it, but
My when I use the term cost control, I just meant that it's control the lot size and the zoning rules and regulations are going to control how big these houses can ultimately be. So if there were room in Westwood to develop a new neighborhood or a new residential area that we thought would be good to add, this could be an option to consider to create a maze, to create in Islington, to create something like that if there were space for it. If we didn't want that space to just go to $4 or $5 million mansions, right? Like this is the perfect tool to be able to control what that would look like. Which I again I think is an interesting tool and idea. I just don't know if there's a place in Westwood where it would work.
Thank you. All right, so let me see if I can get my thoughts together because some of them have been touched on. I think we've done the right thing having this conversation because any developer who's listening understands that we're talking about it. Because my understanding of this zoning too is we wouldn't attempt to do any kind of zoning without a partnership with a developer in a project because it works a little differently. The zoning has an expiration date, and that's my understanding. And someone from staff correct me if I'm wrong. So it's not something we would just do aspirationally and put it on the books without knowing that something was coming forward. So
We
I think
can't, yeah, we
yeah,
cannot
yeah,
do that at
we
all,
wouldn't do
right?
that. So
Right.
we've having the conversation, I think it's if anyone out there who owns a parcel is listening that's interested, the board has been discussing it. But to Mike's point, I don't know where there's a lot that might be prime for this kind of development. I know we've talked about that parcel on Route 1, but I don't necessarily feel great about putting starter homes right on Route 1 there. I'd have to look at the lot again, but I that doesn't feel like the right thing for me. But I do like that these would be single family homes, that they would be potentially most likely paths to ownership for people because most of our housing that's been new has been that hasn't been very large, expensive homes has been rental or multi, like you're living in an apartment building. And I appreciate I'm interested in creating more opportunities for ownership that are less expensive than some of the current options we have. But to Tim's point, we don't have control over that, so I don't know how that would look. But a development of a proper size or over a certain size would probably result in some more affordable units that again would be ownership. So I find the idea of a development under this law attractive, but I just don't know if we're going to see someone come forward and make a proposal that is what we're looking to do. So I'm hoping we do. I'm trying to think. I was looking at the maps of Westwood, and there are a few parcels that I don't know who owns them, and I don't know if anyone has any intention to do anything with them that might be viable. But to be completely frank, I'd be more interested in seeing something proposed for not Islington because Islington has absorbed a lot over the last few years. I would be interested in seeing something on the other side of town if someone had a parcel that was thinking of doing something with it. So I'm glad we're having this conversation. I find the new law really interesting. It was also interesting to hear that the any commercial use would really be what I would classify, if I'm hearing correctly, as more of like an auxiliary use. We're not going to be looking at like a mixed use like we see at the Block or in Islington Center. It would really be a small commercial component.
I think so. I mean, they left it. I sent you guys exactly what the contact at the state said. It's really kind of open to interpretation. And I think that's one of those things where, as we see this adopted in communities, we'll get to see more of like, what does that look like? Because it sounds like they're trying not to put too much restriction on it, like they did with MBTA communities. So it's hard to say, but
they
it
don't,
seems like there's
yeah, they don't want to see it turn into where it's the main goal is commercial and then the highway
correct.
becomes a secondary goal. And frankly, if we're talking about building a small neighborhood, you don't necessarily want to put like a Staples in the middle of it anyway. That doesn't seem like it's appropriate. So I appreciate the idea of being able to put some sort of commercial in there, which is beneficial to our tax base and also might be a really nice enhancement to a neighborhood. It took me back. I was when we talked about it last time, I was thinking back, we had neighborhoods like that were a little bit smaller lots, smaller homes that maybe did have a little corner store in there. And I'm hearing from people that there's a desire to recreate that. I'm just trying to figure out how and where. And if a proposal were to come forward, I'd be interested in hearing it. So I'm glad we're having these conversations. I'm glad we've talked about it. I'm excited about the potential for the law, but I'm just curious if anyone's going to offer to do something under that in Westwood. So I know Phil talked about like a working group or something. I'm not sure that we're there. Just from my perspective, I think if we had like, a little nibble at this, then I think it would make sense to do that. But I'm just not sure how we would go about kind of to continue on with that metaphor fishing. Yeah. So I'm not sure if I gathered my thoughts very well, but I that's where I'm at on this. I saw Tim's hand go up.
Yeah, can I just is this law is not going anywhere, correct? Like I just we're I don't is there urgency from a timing standpoint? Because I also just I don't necessarily see the benefit in being a first mover. In this case, I think I'd like to see how this plays out in other towns too. I think more information is helpful. So something else to think about. I like that we're having the conversation now. I just in my mind first independent of whether I think it's a good idea or not, I think it's probably premature to be taking it to the next level.
I'll jump in on a couple of points. I might be, the lone advocate, but one on the MBTA communities, we as Westwood on the Everett Street property, we were, I think, the very first. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nora. And I've told this to many people, and I told it to Giorgio, and I'd say it again. I think that was a huge success on that property. It was after I walked that property, saw how badly it had been managed. It was a brown site, all sorts of horrible things. And the fact that it created housing, I feel proud of the result of what is coming out of that, despite an occasional hiccup with Giorgio. Secondly, and I get the concerns about impacts on, Islington. But the real fact of the matter is, I think actually the exact reverse. I agree that people have the sentiment that Islington area has borne more development and whatnot, but we have to consider the facts on the ground. That DOT property is probably the most appropriate, unless I've looked at maps many times, and I don't know where we're going to magically find new land. That to me is the precise reason, if it ever came to pass or came to fruition, that a smaller, maybe starter home size or something like that neighborhood would be appropriate. So I actually think the reverse, as compared to saying, I'm not sure what else we would put there. I mean, because the alternative is it's already in the MBTA communities. You have to recognize the alternative would end up being another Everett Street property project, perhaps. Maybe Giorgio would jump in or somebody else. So maybe it's not the right timing. I think we're short-sighting ourselves if we don't try to be innovative. So I'll accept my lone wolf kind of position on this.
Well, I first of all, do we have any indication that the state's looking to unload that property?
No, none.
So
None?
And I don't think they are, because in order to unload that, they would need another location. So all of that equipment, all of those materials need to be somewhere with access to the major highways and railroads.
There's been a lot of reports about the state is looking to move um, properties I mean, I've read media reports, not that specific, but I've read about how the State House is looking to move assets and properties that they don't necessarily need, and whether that's one of them or not, who knows?
So there is the state home or state land for homes program, and that's what a lot of the media releases have been about. They've identified initial properties, and Westwood doesn't have any of them. But that's the program they created for offloading the state land.
Which I think is a great idea, but I guess it's not that I'm not interested, but it just feels like it's very aspirational at this point because without a property and a developer, I don't know what we as a board or as a town can do at this point. I'm advise me if I'm off the mark here. I don't know what we can do to move the needle anywhere in Westwood without a property or someone who's interested in developing a property in this manner.
Yeah, and if the state is going to give us this land in order to build housing on it, and it's the state's decision, and we have no say about it, etc., then yes, I would support a 40Y type development over another massive complex. But again, I'm very wary of us taking affirmative steps to make it happen in that spot. When you look at an aerial view of that and the surrounding areas, it is very dense. I would prefer there to be just open space, honestly, and so would many of the residents of Islington, because open space is important too. Again, I'm very interested in the concept of open. Why I think Ellen actually described how I feel very succinctly. If there are good parcels of land somewhere in Westwood where another little neighborhood outlet could be developed in a nice, cozy little spot, I think this could be a very interesting thing to discuss. So, if the board shows it would prefer, houses on smaller lots that look like the Maze or Islington over the big mansions that we see going up more and more often. So, but yeah, this is a great conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, if there is a way for us to be innovative and I don't want to say in the vacuum, but in this kind of liminal state that I feel like we're in because we have ideas, we have a desire, it sounds like to some degree to explore, but the vibe I've been getting is that without a commitment from someone to do something, there really isn't much we can do or should do with zoning or anything like that. So I guess I'm asking staff, is there anything else we could and should be doing while we're in this kind of liminal space on this?
I'll defer to Amanda on that. I don't have anything to
Yeah,
share.
it is kind of, I mean, I think you all summarized it well. Without that piece of, without knowing where and who, it does make this a little bit tricky. Yeah.
I think it's worthwhile to revisit this periodically, particularly if other towns, like if Brockton or Mansfield or Marshfield or anyone does it would be, I think it's worthwhile to have the conversations and keep apprised of what's happening and get periodic updates from staff and housing partnership on if there's any changes to the law and whatnot. I think that's something we should absolutely continue to discuss. So maybe we periodically put it on the agenda when time allows to get any updates or any input, or if someone's talked to someone, I think that's great. I would love to be more proactive. I just don't know how we would in a way that is effective
Yeah,
at this.
and piggybacking off of Tim's comment, I'd love to when if other towns start to implement this, I'd love to see where they're putting it, how they're implementing it, right? And because there's a lot of different ways to do this, and it depends on the place, and it depends on the density, and depends on how much land there is in that town. So I'm so curious how this plays out over the first couple instances.
Yeah, if we end up having a developer show up tomorrow with a proposal, then I think that changes the game. But in the absence of that, I agree. I like to innovate, and I was actually quite proud that we were kind of ahead of the curve on the MBTA zoning. But I'm without the other parties that we would need to move forward on this, I'm not sure how we could move to the top of the pile. I saw Maureen and then Amanda.
Amanda, this is something that has been like in the makings for like a year or two, correct? That you've been working on?
So it was a so one of the big things in terms of public input that came out of the housing production plan that you guys recently adopted, as well as the previous one, and was a conversation decades before that, was how do you preserve the starter homes because of what we're seeing where, you know, the smaller homes are being demolished and a much larger home is being built on those sites, which obviously creates more expensive housing. And so it's always been a goal of the town in various plans, but never the feedback kind of was there was never really a tool to do it. And so this legislation kind of quietly came out in 2022, and we didn't even have the regulations yet at the time. So we just knew this was a potential tool to actually regulate starter homes in some capacity. But we didn't get the regulations until this spring. And as we've seen with all of these legislations, there's a lot of nuance to it, and we're all trying to figure it out as we go. But in terms of actual plan, it was just, this is something we want to explore because it was for the purposes of creating the housing production plan. It wasn't for the purposes of starting any initiative that has to go through the process of the planning board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Amanda, you had your hand up individually
Yeah.
as well, yes.
I'll also add, you know, the board may want to consider what the goal is. I think you guys were getting at this a little bit in the first time you discussed this. Is it affordability? Is it the size of homes? Is it the size of lots? You know, looking at what it is the ultimate goal, because it may be that you could achieve what you want in a different way. Maybe 40Y isn't it, but they're depending on what your actual priority is in this is a different, you know, you can rethink your strategy that way too. I'm not trying to push you away from 40Y. I'm just, you know, I think there's people have different intentions out of this. And I know from the housing partnerships perspective, it was more of a dimensional thing, like actually preserving the size, which does help with affordability. But like Tim said, ultimately, because of market values in Westwood, that can still go for a large sum.
No, thank you. That's a good point. Because I agree. Sometimes the dimensional requirements kind of guide the cost or the price of the home, but these days not always. I'm seeing smaller homes on smaller lots going for prices that I'm frankly a little surprised at. So I think that discussion of goals, I mean, I was just thinking that too. 40Y may not today be the tool to achieve what we want to achieve, but we may have other tools that could. I mean, as far as affordability goes, I'm not sure how much leeway we have there if a development's under a certain size. But as far as dimensional requirements, I mean, we do have purview over setbacks, and setbacks and height requirements are things that we don't need a new law to tell us what we can do with it. We can, if we want to make changes to those, we could. So maybe that should be part of our conversation if we really want to discourage the building of bigger. That is within our control as a board to regulate to a certain degree. We could say 25 feet is too high. Perhaps we want to revisit that, or, you know, a 15-foot setback, maybe it should be 20 on a 10th. I don't know. I'm spitballing, but you know, there are ways, to your point, Amanda, that we have tools in our toolbox today that aren't dependent on a piece of land and a developer and a project that we could discuss if that is a goal that we would like to move the needle on. Yes, Tim.
I also just want to add, I don't know if I love the mindset too of, you know, oh, this space is available to us. Let's develop it into housing. Like, I think there needs to be a broader approach to they're weighing the environment, green space, density, traffic. I worry that we're going down a rabbit hole of we have this land, or if there was a plot of land we had, let's build housing. And I don't think that should always be the default. While I recognize that there's interest from all parties and wanting to make sure we have access to housing, I just think that needs to be a broader conversation.
Thank you. It's always good to keep the big picture in mind overall as well. Thank you. I think we have a couple of comments in the Q&A, and it looks like we do. I can read them. I'm going to apologize in advance if I mispronounce this name. Olivian Savastana, 565 Everett Street. As someone who works throughout the Westwood School District, there is limited spaces, if any, in all of the schools. With more housing leads to a need for more spaces within schools. There is already multiple housing properties being made in Westwood, and there isn't room for all the students incoming. With untouched land, we should be working to preserve it and create areas of green spaces, parks for walking, play for current and incoming residents. And then there's a second comment from the same resident. I also want to clarify where this location is on the University Ave and Downey Elementary School side of the town. There's too much traffic already in the area, and there's a Costco coming into this area as well. The traffic is already ridiculous and hard to get to and from places in the mornings and throughout the day. With more apartments equates to more traffic as well. For housing development, it should be moved to the opposite side of the district. That question I think we can actually answer. The parcel we were talking about kind of hypothetically, it is on Route 1. It's kind of near Lambert's and that area. So it is in the Route 1 business district. But again, that is a state-owned property that we were discussing kind of aspirationally, but it sounds like there's no indication that that property would even be available to us for anything. It's the state uses it for staging for vehicles and salt storage and a whole bunch of things. And then I think we did kind of talk about some other, there is no one property, I guess is the answer, is this is kind of any project under this particular law would be dependent on someone who owned a piece of property wanting to develop it. And it would not be apartments. It would be single family units. I believe that's part of the law. So someone could not build more apartments under this particular legislation. Did we get all the questions that were in there? I think we did. If we did not, I apologize and feel free to ask again, but I think we addressed the questions, and thank you for your comments.
Yeah, I will add that perspective is shared widely on that side of town. And also the notion that the resident hit on in terms of wanting more stuff in town as we continue to build housing, adding things that residents can actually use as well. When I talk to potentially open spaces of land, people usually say, I'd like that to just stay green or become a park or become a place to walk. That's usually the answer I get, not some type of commercial property, not some type of housing property. So I think balancing those two things, which is also what Tim kind of was referring to before, is something that we have to keep at the top of our minds. And we have to get more stuff that residents can use. I think that's part of what we need to do in this next year.
Thank you. And I agree that within our purview, I mean, obviously, if someone owns a piece of property and it's zoned for X, Y, and Z, and they want to do something with it, we have some limits on what we can and cannot ask for. But I think continuing to try and incentivize via our zoning the things that we want to see in our commercial areas is a good idea. I think, Mike, you in particular have really been an advocate for that over the last year, and I think that's a really good thing. And also we as a board can be responsive to that through things like special permits. When people are asking for X, Y, and Z, we can say we want A, B, and C in response to the things that we're looking for. And maybe we should be looking at, I know the OSRD special permit process has some requirements around green space. I think that's another thing we could be looking at as a board for other types of special permits, about looking at what we require for leaving undeveloped in a development, and that, in my opinion, would be the way to look at that, because it's tough when zoning says someone can do X, and I've seen this. We've had parcels where the neighbors were like, wow, we'd really love that to stay woods. And frankly, a lot, so would I. I like the woods, but if someone owns the property and they by right can build 5 houses on it and they're going to do it, there's only so much we can do unless we look at the zoning. So, um, I appreciate all this input from residents about what people want and from my colleagues here. I think we have a lot of things to think about and a lot of things that we could do. Um, and I am interested in the 40Y legislation and the laws and what that could bring to our community if there's someone with a parcel that's interested in doing it. I would be very interested in having that conversation. But it does feel like for us at this point, it really is aspirational because it's not something we can just, it's not like when we added MBTA zoning or FMUD zoning where it's something we could just kind of do. Yeah, so I would recommend, and I'm open to suggestion on this, that we keep this as we check in on this periodically and see what's developed and see if there's any new ideas and or if we're hearing about projects in other towns. And in the interim, I think we have talked about there's things that we would like to do that we might be able to do. Some of the goals, like Amanda said, maybe we should have a conversation about what are our goals and then what tools do we have at our disposal now to try and work towards those goals. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right. Thank you. This was a really robust conversation. I really appreciate everyone's input because these types of things I think we as a community have been talking about for quite some time and how do we move the needle? So I'm happy to talk about any and every tool we can that will help us move the needle in the direction that we want to move it. Any other conversation around 40Y and housing and setbacks and all that at this time? All right, I am not seeing any. Sorry, I got to get back to my agenda here. Oh, one of my favorite agenda items. Then our next agenda item is recommendations, annual recommendations to the select board for various subcommittee and committee liaison appointments. Who wants, or what I like to call, who wants to do what? So, for those who maybe haven't watched us do this before, we have liaisons and representatives on various other boards, and since we have technically reorganized today, we have to decide who wants to be those liaisons and representatives. And I'm stalling, hoping Nora has a list
Yes.
because I do not have them all memorized, but.
Right. Just 1 minute.
So while we
Up here, hold on.
yeah, that's fine. Well, our board, the composition of our board, we have not had any deltas in our membership, but there may be people who want to do something different for their liaisonships this year.
Okay, so these are the appointments for the prior year. First is MAPC, and this does not have to be redone this year. These are 3-year appointments, and they're valid through June 30th of 2028. So Steve Alnoff stays the member, and Phil Giordano stays the alternate for MAPC. Next, we have Housing Partnership. Currently, Phil is the member, and Mike is the alternate. Would anyone
Should we
like
just
to?
go through these as one at a time as we go through? Okay.
So.
Phil, it seems like you're enjoying that. Did you
Oh,
want to?
no, I want to stay on it. I find it interesting.
Does anyone object? I certainly don't, but was anyone else interested in Housing Partnership or maybe to be the Mike, are you happy being the alternate?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And Steve's excellent on the MBTA because we meet with Pevin Bike and he's at every meeting. He's very detailed with that, so I would keep him there.
Three Rivers Interlocal Council. So Elijah had been the member. We're getting a new town planner. We haven't appointed one yet. It'll take a while, but when a new member comes on, I don't think they would have the time to be the full-time member of this. I would recommend going back to making a planning board member.
Or,
Representative.
is there anyone now? I was the rep for a year, and I will tell you, it was really interesting to meet people from some of our neighboring communities, and most of them were actually town planners, or there was a couple of planning board members, but by and large, they were town planners or directors and whatnot. So if someone's interested in kind of learning a bit more about, municipal planning, but also what our neighbors are doing, I think that could be a very valuable role, particularly with some of the things we're hearing are going on in neighboring communities. It's
Yeah,
a good spot for someone.
I'll take that one if you want. Some of the time slots are better than I was looking at the schedules too for me. So this works for me.
They tend to meet in the morning and sometimes it's in person, at least it used to be. And a lot of times it's on Zoom. So if that works for you, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, sure.
Excellent. Then you can report out to us all the things that are happening in our neighboring towns.
Anytime my kids aren't in the house is a good time. So.
Tim, I'll still be your alternate, but
Is that right now?
keep me on the bench.
Yeah.
And I will stay with the WEAC.
Excellent. And as I recall with Trick, Mike, there's nothing that says you can't go too. It's just only one member can, if there's a vote on something, only the
Yeah.
one person could vote. But if you wanted to attend, you absolutely could.
I appreciate that, Ellen. Thank you.
I'm encouraging people to attend.
Because it's virtual, right, Ellen?
Most of the time, I mean, I was really lousy
It's a
Trick
mix.
because I
It's
couldn't go.
yes, it's a mix of virtual and in person. And I hope our town planner will go as often as possible. I just think starting a new job, a
Starting
new
out.
position here, it'll be hard in the first year to make it to all the meetings. All right, so who else? I think we said Steve Elnoff remains on the MBTA.
And I'll remain on ped and bike. We got a good thing going, so we got to continue it.
Right. This might be easier than I thought it might be. And Maureen's going to stay with WEAC. Is anyone else interested in long-range financial planning?
I think that's you, Ellen.
Well, I don't want to hog it.
You're not hogging anything.
I've been the rep for a couple of years and that is something that if someone had an interest, I wouldn't get in the way. But if nobody else really wants to do it, I will stay. I
Okay.
enjoy it, but I was willing to give someone else a chance if they wanted it.
I do
think
enough
when somebody
finance
gets
every
into
day.
things, they kind of get some knowledge.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do enjoy it, but okay, so I'm happy to stay on if nobody else wants to take a run at it this year. And then Canton Street Project Working Group. Typically that because it's a project, I've been the rep because it's made sense to stick with it. But if we want to make a change, we haven't really been meeting. But yeah, typically with project stuff, like with the off-leash dog working group, that was Kate, right?
I think that was Michael.
Mike?
Yeah,
Was-
that's Mike.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
No.
Mike took Kate's place. Right.
Ellen, I mean, you have all the knowledge from having been in that group, the Canton Street group, so I would continue that.
Yeah, I'm happy to, and typically when it's a project thing, it's usually the same person unless they leave the board or leave town or for whatever reason. But I just figured I'd put it out there. And do you want to continue with the dog park?
Yeah, they haven't met, but if and when they meet again, I'm happy to provide some oversight or some assistance.
All right, well then that is your full slate.
That was easy. Go us.
Someone want to make the motion?
I move that the planning board recommend the select board's appointment of the following members to serve on the following boards and committees for the 2026-27 year. Three Rivers, do I have to read all those too?
Yes, please.
Okay. Three Rivers Interlocal Council, Trick, member Timothy S. Say your name for me, Tim.
Aladina.
Thank you, Haladina. Alternate member, Michael J. Dradarian. MBT Advisory Board designee, member Steve Olenoff. Housing Partnership member, Philip M. Giordano. Alternate member, Michael J. Dradarian. Pedestrian and Bike Advisory Committee, member Michael J. Dudarian. Western Environmental Council, WEAC, member Maureen Collins-White. Long Range Financial Planning Committee, member Ellen Larkin Rawlings. Canton Street Project Working Group, member Ellen Larking Rollins, and Off Leash Dog Parking Working Group, member Michael J. Dudarian.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Mike,
Aye.
Maureen,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
Tim.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That motion carries. All right. So now that goes to the select board and then they vote to appoint everyone
That's
to.
correct. Yes, goes as a recommendation.
Excellent. All right. All right, our next agenda item is minutes, the minutes from the April 21st, 2026 meeting. Does anyone have any edits, questions, comments?
Hey, Jess? Am I
Yes.
on mute? On the vote, I think there was only, because Mike wasn't there, it should be vote 4-0 for both the votes.
Oh, okay. Which vote? All of them or just the minutes?
Just on the minutes. There was two
Oh, okay.
places where the votes were 5-0. And it should have
Yep.
been,
I'll change it to 4.
because Mike wasn't there, right?
Correct. He was not.
Yeah, and should I not vote on these minutes? Is that abstain?
You
I
can
don't think you
abstain. That's up to you.
I was wondering about that because Mike, did you do that, the whole Mullen farm or?
I did. But I remember Phil doing this, and I thought he abstained the last time. But
Okay.
very technical stuff here.
Right?
Yeah, I had done
Under
it,
the
but then
bus.
I ended up abstaining when I had done it before and signed the affidavit.
Yeah.
But I think you're allowed to vote when you do the review, you watch the video, you do the affidavit, et cetera. You can vote if that's my understanding.
Correct.
Well,
All right, I'll vote.
all right, I'll leave it up to you then. All right. Okay. I'm sorry. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Wait,
Did
did Maureen
anyone
make a
second?
motion or she just had a recommendation
Oh,
about it?
I'm sorry. Maureen just had the recommendation.
Right,
I
thank
didn't think we got a motion or a second.
You're right.
Yeah.
Maureen just made the recommendation. I'm reading the motion in the
That's
second.
okay.
So was there any further discussion on this?
No.
Okay. Then I would entertain a motion. Anyone?
Maureen, it's up to you. You're the one who catches all the typos and whatnot.
Ah. I'm not going to anymore. I move that the planning board approve the minutes for the meeting of April 21, 2026, all as amended.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Maureen,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
vote aye as well. That motion carries. Thank you, as always, Jess.
Thank you, Jess.
I did that to keep you guys on your toes.
There it is. Yes, to make sure that we're all actually
Thank you.
reading them. Our next agenda item is agency and committee updates. Has anyone attended any meetings that they'd like to report out on?
I have been going to the ped and bike meetings, and the topic of the day is definitely Costco, which I have another meeting this week, so I can report back more after our next meeting. But Steve's been going to all of the DOT meetings about that intersection, so he's been providing a lot of valuable information about what was planned before the Costco stuff has been announced or going around. So.
Yeah, I would imagine some of those I went to at least one of those meetings. I saw Steve and I think Joe Prevotera was there and Nora was there as well. And I don't believe at all that their calculations and plans included any of the Costco impacts because that announcement was made after. So yes, I'll be interested to hear what you bring to us on that. Anyone else been to anything? My groups haven't met, so I have nothing to share.
Mine don't meet till next week.
All right. Okay. Then our next agenda item is miscellaneous updates, general miscellaneous updates and administrative items. Anything from staff?
Just one thing, just a reminder, we have 2 A&R plans, the EIDR rules and regulations and the special permit rules and regulations sitting at the police station, waiting for your signature. And tomorrow we will add the planning board rules and regulations and the scenic road approval regulations to those. So if you could stop by as soon as possible, the applicants for the A&Rs are getting extremely antsy. They would like their their ability to record their A&R plans.
Remind me the addresses on those two.
509, 529 High Street.
I think High Street
only-
is all signed. I
Yeah.
was the last signature on High Street.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. And do you know the other one offhand?
The
was
other
only-
one, we're still waiting on the plans. There was
Oh,
only
okay.
one.
Okay, it's
The-
only one that's sitting there. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
High Street was the only one sitting there. I was the last signature and I did that, I think, a week ago. So it's ready to be picked up. I don't think there's
Alright.
another one. But the rules and regs from our last meeting were there that I signed also.
Thank you. So if other members can sign the rules and regs, and I'll have the other 2 added tomorrow.
Great. Thank you. All
um,
right.
If you weren't able to get into Diligent tonight, not just the public side, but the member login, please reach out to IT as soon as possible, because we will lose IQM at the end of June. So we have to figure it out now. Otherwise, we'll be in trouble.
So I just emailed everybody in IT. Is there one person in particular that we should reach out to, or?
So Colin is handling it, mostly, but it should, if you email IT, it goes to all of them. So, I can also, I know Phil, Ellen, did anyone else have trouble?
I'm
I had a
assuming,
lot of trouble. So-
Okay,
Yeah. For what it's worth, it's an awesome. It's such an
Great.
improvement.
It's
I
great.
actually love it.
okay.
I'm assuming I got the right thing because I had everything that's been presented.
Okay, yeah.
The
So,
only-
It's very
um,
unusual.
Yes, Jess.
The only thing I had is that I'm doing it right now. I'm doing it on a separate thing.
mhm.
But I thought I could be able to do both at the same time on one screen, and I panicked and anyhow, I'm still sorting it out. I think I've got it. I don't think I can do it all on one computer, do the notes, the Diligent, and the Zoom at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we can play
But-
with that.
Yeah, I'm still playing with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and when I went in to kind of just be a guinea pig, really, and I was getting in, it was great, and I loved it, and then something has changed because when I tried to log in over the weekend, now it says user not found. So I will reach out to IT. It sounds like Phil was having similar issues, so I'll send them an email tomorrow morning and see if we can figure out what changed that means I can't get in anymore, because I really loved it. I want to be back in Diligent ASAP. So
The other thing I had a problem with is when I went to log in tonight, I clicked on the first meeting on top and it was like the June 2nd meeting.
That's the way the site is configured. Once the meeting starts, it goes to past meetings.
Okay,
Oh.
that's because I was like, wait a minute. I was just in it because I was in it earlier today and I'm like, what happened? And then I was like, oh, this is June 2nd. Where is today's date? Okay.
Yeah,
So that
Yeah,
happened. All
that's-
right, got it.
yeah. So I'll let IT know that both of you will be in contact to troubleshoot that.
thank you. All right. Any other administrative or miscellaneous updates?
No?
All right, then our final agenda item is our upcoming meetings. We have board meetings on June 2nd, 2026, June 23rd, 2026, and July 14th, 2026. Isn't that Bastille Day?
I think
I know
so.
we're not Canadian, but I'm pretty sure or French, but I'm pretty sure that's Bastille Day. All right. Well, with that, unless anyone has anything else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I
I
move.
move to adjourn.
I was gonna say, nobody wants to adjourn?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on adjournment? Seeing none, I'll
It's so
take.
early, we're not used to this.
I know everybody's like a little stunned.
Wait.
Not even 10 o'clock, which is great. All right, I'll take roll call. Tim,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Maureen.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Thank you all. We are adjourned. Nice work tonight. We had long conversations and we're out of here before 10 o'clock. Well done.